HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents Spirit Run, a 6,000-mile marathon through North America's stolen land, by Noe Álvarez. Read by Ramon de Ocampo. Outline of the run. British Columbia, Canada. Prince George, Alkali Lake, Lillooet, Melvin Creek, Mount Currie, Whistler, Vancouver. Washington, United States. La Conner, Coupeville, Port Angeles, Nia Bay, Rialto Beach, La Push, Quinault. Oregon. Portland, Eugene, Reedsport, Coos Bay, Battle Rock, Gold Beach. California. Blue Creek, Klamath River, Weed, Mount Shasta, Redding, Covelo, Yakima Forestville, Richmond, Berkeley, Oakland, Mission San Jose, Fremont, Watsonville, Santa Maria, Solvang, Santa Barbara, Montecito, Oxnard, Santa Paula, Piru, Pasadena, East Los Angeles, Anaheim, Chicano Park, San Diego. Arizona. Yuma, Ajo, Tucson, Nogales. Mexico. Magdalena de Quino, Hermosillo, Bahía Quino, Punta Chueca, Isla Tiburón, Potam, Ciudad Obregón, San Miguel Zapotitlán, Los Mochis, Culiacán, Mazatlán, Chametla, Acaponeta, Huaricori, Tepic, Ixtlán del Río, Magdalena, Jalisco, Teochitlán, Guadalajara, Tonalá, Chapala, Ajijic, Tuxhueca, Sahuayo, Jiquilpan, Morelia, Pátzcuaro, Teotihuacán, Amatlán de Quetzalcóatl, Cuernavaca, Tasco, Itzcateopan de Cuauhtémoc, Oaxaca, Tuxtla Gutiérrez, Caracol o Ventic, Acteal, Toniná, Cascadas de Agua Azul, Comitán. Guatemala, Huehuetenango, Saculeo Ruins. Prologue. 2003. Among the pines of Bella Coola, in Canada's British Columbia, Canadian authorities escort a 17-year-old mother in handcuffs to identify and unearth the site where she buried a baby son a few days earlier. The teenage mother's name, Crow, of the Secwepemc Nation, whose full name translates to water waves, is reflected in her tears. The baby she buried was her firstborn son, pronounced dead at 7 weeks old. For 49 days her baby lived with the power of a name, under the protection of the Secwepemc tradition of caring for one's own, blanketed with the dreams of a mother who sang to him until the very end, when he stopped eating. Fearing that the hospital would take him away, Crow wrapped him into his cradleboard and escaped with him into the forest. She remembers that night in the mountains as very cold. The rain pelleted her as she and 2 others encircled the boy in a wall of ceremony before digging up a spot in the muddy earth with a shovel. The Secwepemc people bury their own. But on this February day, the authorities unearth the body of the infant, Nupika Amak, one who can travel between 2 worlds, reversing the sacred order by which a Secwepemc mother makes peace with the loss of a son. They desecrate the earth in front of her, land that had laid claim to Nupika Amak's spirit, and bring him back to this world to be processed, tagged, and issued both a birth and death certificate. Then they take his mother back into custody for questioning. When asked why she didn't register her baby, because she wanted him to be a freedom baby, free from government oppression. In 2004, in a salmon fish hatchery in Chickaloon Village, Alaska, where snow is still thickly packed onto the ground and the air cuts a person's face like obsidian glass, 30-year-old Chula Pepper, a traveler from San Diego, California, stares into a mirror of a bathroom with a Swiss Army knife in hand. No job, no relationship, no home. She grabs her long hair and cuts, like sickle to wheat, long black strands, before settling onto the cold floor, nearly bald. She shivers over the few things to her name: a backpack, some clothing, a sleeping bag, rain pants, and a troubled past. Tomorrow, she decides, life will be different. In the small town of Smithers, Canada, 19-year-old Xianya Lone Wolf of Gitxsan and Dakelh nations quits her job flipping burgers at a McDonald's and relinquishes her role as caretaker of a household in torment, an incarcerated father, a drug-addicted mother, and a murdered cousin along Canada's highway of tears. Against her mother's wishes, she withdraws what little savings she has from an ATM, purchases a backpack, and breaks from all she has ever known to join a caravan of Indigenous runners. Still farther north, in one of the coldest parts of the Vashrai Ku, or Arctic Village, Alaska, an elder named Ipana packs her life of 60 years into 5 oversized suitcases and travels to join the others. Indigenous runners from across the world congregating in Alaska for a race through North America toward Panama. In Fairbanks, Ipana, a leader in the Dene territories, a community aligned with the migration patterns of the porcupine caribou, faces a wind and thinks about those ancient runners who had passed through these lands, migratory protectors of the sun who had moved with the herds of caribou. The time has come for Ipana to find within herself the spirit of those runners, the Sun People, to find the courage to leave home and spread an urgent message. The Arctic is dying. Around the same time in Oakland, California, 29-year-old Chito awakes to the day on which his dream will come true. A dream of a run that unifies all the people of the world and that takes him far away from an area he no longer feels a part of, the Bay Area, to which he was brought over from Mexico when he was only 2 years old. He has quit his job at EB Games, said goodbye to his nieces and nephews, and scavenged the Bay Area's thrift stores for warm clothing. He packs his backpack, takes farewell photos with family, then washes down a couple of Heinekens at a going-away party this afternoon. The next morning, he boards a gray van, which will take him to Alaska. Alone in the Hazlet Basin, in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains in Fresno, California, a man dials into his Apache and Purepecha heritage, beating a drum for guidance. Here, beside a fire pit among ponderosa pines, in ceremonial sweat, Andrek prepares himself spiritually and mentally to co-lead runners through North America. He meditates for the courage and the clarity to lead Indigenous warriors safely across vast lands. He sings and stokes the fire, calling on the wisdom of his Apache mother and Vietnam veteran elders who taught him about committing to things that are bigger and greater than oneself. He channels the wisdom of the medicine bag around his neck, Apache protection, he calls it, and drives a gray van all the way down to Los Angeles to pick up runners, before driving far north to Alaska, in search of that person that his father wasn't. In Arizona, there's a man whose soul is branded by the tragedy of the copper mine strike of 1983. He, Pacquiao, the main leader of the run, was about 10 years old when he witnessed his hometown of Ajo, Arizona on lockdown. Martial law enforced, the town besieged by bulldozers, snipers, police, and the National Guard. It was an event that displaced many residents, separated families, and converted the place into a near ghost town. For 4 days and 4 nights, Pacquiao, of Yaqui, Tohono O'odham, and Opata heritage, submerges himself in ceremony in an arid region of southern Arizona. He sweats, fasts, and prepares himself to carry forward the immense weight laid upon him 2 years prior by the elder Gustavo, his mentor, a prominent labor movement leader and the founder of the sacred ultra-marathons across North and South America, held every 4 years, known as the Peace and Dignity Journeys. Pacquiao co-organizes with Andrek and Chula Pepper a safe route across North America, starting in Alaska. After securing and loading up the vans, Pacquiao leads a caravan north to Chickaloon, Alaska. On the way, he gives lectures and picks up runners. In Sonora, Mexico, 2 Yoremi Nation brothers, Masat, also called El que corriendo mata, or He who runs conquers, and his older brother Greñas take leave of their families and university studies to hitchhike several days north to the U.S. border. They journey to fulfill an obligation to their elders, to surrender to the run and embrace the way of the warrior, those committed to the protection and preservation of the land, animals, and their people's culture. These are only some of the marathoners of Peace and Dignity Journey 2004. They are ordinary people, proud of their heritage, summoned by a call greater than themselves. And then there's me. We. 1. Warehouse white noise. Even the sun yields to the massive gray structures dominating the small town of Sila, Washington. They are fruit production and distribution centers, empaques, as they're called in Spanish, that confine migrant labor inside, as prisons might. Here, apples, cherries, and pears are packaged for delivery across the globe. These warehouses stand only 5 minutes from my house in Yakima. Here, and throughout the rest of the Yakima Valley, men with guns, hired policemen, idle at the front gates of the private property. At shift change, security personnel in reflective vests direct the flow of employee traffic by flagging figure eights in the air like on airport tarmacs. Day and night, semi-trucks bearing hillocks of apples grumble in and out of the premises. Towers of apple bins, 25-foot beacons branded with a company logo, stand in the sun, waiting to be loaded. They slice shade from the unrelenting heat, and each day a little bit of dignity from the backs of the laborers. This shade sundials onto the blistered hoods of cars that Mexican migrants carpool inside of in 110-degree weather. Boys, almost men, operate beeping forklifts, hauling fruit cargo in haste. Parched winds whip against a limp U.S. flag the size of a large billboard, as if to remind us whose land this really is. Summer heat waves lean into the backs of working men, women, and miners like me, employed for the summer, 16, 17-year-olds, as they exit the sauna of packed cars and swarm the fruit-packing warehouse for a chance at a meager paycheck. At shift change, the people in their company lime-green shirts burst out of the warehouses. Among them is my mother, Carmen, whom I accompany for the first time the summer of 2002. I'm 17, a junior in high school, and in this part of the country, kids much younger than me are expected to work. Some drop out of school to support their families. This summer my mom and I work the day shift together, although she usually works nights. When people scurry past me, I look into the harried faces of the working class. My people. Mexicans and non-Mexicans. We are united and divided by our condition. There's nothing uplifting about this kind of work. I look at myself and my green shirt. I'm not any different. To be young and in high school means nothing to a place like this. Soon, I fear, it will consume and trap me like all the rest. My dreams of ever leaving Yakima ending here. My mother's identity, in her decades working here, seems to have been reduced to a company shirt that clings to her skin in dark shades of sweat. ID badges hang around our necks, a pass to work, to exist. We hurry inside, where deafening generators run and metallic sounds reverberate, throbbing in our heads long after shift has ended. The place is a confusion to me, a complex mess of man and machinery designed only for one thing: to package fruit. The byproduct? The erosion of the minds of the people working here. We walk through an invisible wall of icy air that sends chilly beads of sweat down our bodies. My mother pinches her shirt and fans it in the cool air, but the cold quickly consumes her in a shiver, and she puts on her sweater. We split off, men and women, to separate quarters of the building. Like sleepwalkers, people take their stations. Gray walls and blinding commercial lights around us direct people's gazes downward. My mother, a sorter, slouches over one of the many conveyor belts of fruit, shoulder to shoulder with other women, in a valley of mothers, grandmothers, and even great-grandmothers, all conditioned to believe that this is all they can do with their lives. Little by little, the company has stripped them of the things that identify them as individuals. They have removed their watches and jewelry. Their hair is tucked beneath blue hairnets. They do this until their individuality is largely erased. They become one monotonous shape, the shape of a worker. The conveyor belt flows with apples, pears, and cherries, depending on the season. Delicate fingers sort the fruit picked by the hands of mothers who live all across the Yakima Valley. Fruit that ends up in stores, farmers' markets, and ultimately in homes across the globe. The bosses are stationed above us in mezzanine offices. They are vigilant. Some prowl the scaffolding with clipboards and walkie-talkies. A few senior-status Latinos are charged with supervising us, wearing a false sense of belonging and authority as though it were a badge. They pit us against one another. They reward us with company swag and lunchboxes. Many times this summer I observe my mother hard at work, harder than any mother should be. I watch her going through the motions, planted among machines. Nothing I can do about it but hold out for the day I will graduate from high school and go off to college, become a small-town hero, return a different man. Until then, my jaws clench at the thought that my mother's body is being molded by the demands of apple orchard owners. Her feet, shoulders, and hands seek relief from her sinking, stiff posture, her aches and misaligned joints. Blood queues in her calves in the form of varicose veins, and she shrugs at the pinch above her shoulders where the muscle has thickened like a bull's hump. A similar deformation is taking shape in her knees. Only now, this summer, do I learn the pangs resulting from standing for long hours in a factory. The uncirculated blood below the knees crushes my feet. I wonder how my mother has sustained this for as long as she has. Decades. I feel sorry for ever having been impatient with her, for not being more helpful around the house, and for not fully understanding what the warehouses were doing to her mental health. Years of toiling in these conditions has left her too beaten down to start anew. I now begin to understand why my mother didn't want me looking for a job here. She was probably afraid of what I'd see, or worse, that I might view her differently. But despite her misgivings, as soon as I was old enough, strong enough, I insisted on working with her at the factory. I am hoping to alleviate some of the financial pressure, hoping in my own naive way that I can do something to save our family, the unit that is clearly coming apart at the seams. What I am learning is that we aren't making it as a family. I blame Yakima for stretching us too thin, for keeping us separated on holidays and weekends because bills needed to be paid and food needed to be bought. For years I avoided facing this, knowing that I might crumble beneath the weight. To delve into this misery was not helpful to surviving the years, but my parents have lost the spark between them. Love for them has become just another part-time job on top of 2 or 3 other jobs. The thing about love is that it doesn't put food on the table. Working alongside my mother forces me to open my eyes. College will protect me. I have to save up enough money, somehow. I think of the moments when my mother called me at home, after school during her lunch breaks. There's food in the fridge, she would say. Not just the beans and rice we ate almost every day, or the tortillas lathered with butter and salt then scrunched into balls. Special meals that she cooked at night, at the end of her shifts while I slept. When I can, I wave to my mother on my way to an even colder section of the building, inside the freezer, where the product goes for storage. Even I can't escape the mark of labor tainting my shirt, soul, and mind. I'm demoralized by the images of my people almost prostrating before machines. I despise the way it touches me. The touch of toil. My eye sockets sink with exhaustion. Fruit stains my clothes. My lower back aches, and my feet feel hammered with nails. There are days that I can't help but feel a certain shame when looking into my mother's eyes. And it is for this reason that I hate the warehouses the most. I begin to doubt if I can ever free my mother from the assault of the fruit industry. The harder I work, the more I feed into the whole enterprise, the more tired I get of fighting, the more I hate who I become, and the more I become part of the problem. I become efficient at the thing that I don't want to become efficient at. The harder I work, the more I begin to believe that I am only useful for my physical strength. I bottle up the worry for a later day, daydreaming about college counselors, financial aid, and course catalogs, when my time will come to do greater things far outside of town. I have to get into college. I have my high school counselors for guidance. I can pester them for information on colleges, financial aid, and tell them that the Army is not for me, as is expected. Many here join the Army in hopes of winning their citizenship. "Ama!" I call out to her on my way to the bathroom, where long lines force me to hold it in. My voice can't shake her from the rapid river of apples. "Ama!" I shout against the clicks and clangs of metal mouths hounding my mother. What chokes me up is the sight of her hand, hiding from the prickles of tendinitis and tucked between her left breast and soft stomach. Her hand is tender within a wrist brace. It brings her no comfort. Her other hand does the work of two, grabbing the fruit as best as she can. Once again I shout to grab her attention, until she finally forces a smile at me. My mother likes to talk me up to her friends. They look at me like someone who could help change things around here. Here is as far as they go. The alarms sound. The machines convulse again with rage for man and woman. Unforgiving. The speed increases. The shouting from above resumes. My mother's eyes fall over the belt again. I enter through plastic doors into another massive wing where fruit is stacked and stored. The temperature drops by several degrees. The roar of forklifts is in my ears as I dart through the mayhem to my spot at the end of the line. There, the conveyor belt unleashes its tantrum of large fruit boxes. Diesel clouds from the forklifts act upon my nose like smelling salts and give me a jolt of energy that I take out in anger on my work. This is for my mother. This is for my father. This is for all the working-class people, of all races and colors, who have to put up with living like this. My gloves tear at the fingertips, nicked by the rough handling of boxes, and I suck my cuticles clean of blood. The taste of machinery is inside of me now, the iron taste of blood. Extra gloves come out of our paychecks, so we keep quiet. I'm on stacking duty, or estaqueando, as the men call it. The men no longer look me up and down like they did the first day, as if to say, "He won't last, quit wasting my time," and "Here's another young sucker, fallen like the rest of us." Maybe now they see me as part of their own, something I both want and don't, because it means that I'm adjusting. But I hate that success means that I must see myself as something better, as non-Mexican. Maybe if I could keep seeing myself as something else, as something better, I'd help end the vicious cycle of hard labor. But this is a privilege many people here don't have. They can't afford to see themselves as better than their condition. At least not yet. The men and I wait at the end of the line. Our teeth chatter with cold like Morse code, secret messages decipherable only by those living inside. Hands rest on hips or under the warmth of armpits, chests expand rapidly after a flash of work, and eyes remain tunnel-visioned to one task, readying ourselves for the next batch of boxes. We say little during the calm. Our faces glisten with sweat. After each man readies his pallet behind him, he waits for the new barrage of product. It's during these moments that I become acquainted with a new kind of cold. Warehouse cold. It's a cold that seals lips, that seeps into bones, that presses underpaid workers to work like robots. Our bodies chase after boxes for brief embraces of warmth. We put on flannel coats but still shiver. We pat our arms and stomp the cold from our feet like men caught in a blizzard. Regularly, the memory of what goes on inside and outside these walls beats inside of me, while the other men and I march in place for warmth. Outside, somewhere on an orchard or construction site, my father continues to pick fruit or hammer nails into buildings that will stand long after him. I conjure the good hours, when I'm not at work, when I am among other Latinos who sit on their lawns, barbecuing carne asadas, sipping beer, listening to music, happy that another day has been endured. We stand along the belt, muscles cramping from constant hot-to-cold transitions. The bellow of generators and machinery blends all noise together into one cacophonous hum. The warehouse white noise. The buzzer sounds. Like clockwork, we pivot our weight, moving rapidly, tapping into our reserves to pick off 15-pound boxes like butter from the conveyor belt, stacking them onto blue wooden pallets. We hunch low over these pallets, gradually stacking them as we build them so high that we have to stand on our toes. 9 boxes per level, 15 levels tall. We lift boxes with all our strength onto the pallets, towering well above our heads, pushing with our shoulders and then fingertips. The product rises and rises, labels facing out. The labels must always face out. When they don't, pallets have to be disassembled. I'm still getting the hang of it. Pallets must stand straight. When the pallets get too tall, I learn, by watching the other men, how to flip boxes into the air like pizza dough, but with the weight of fruit. I feel something like pride when I catch on. A glimpse of joy, even, at the thought of beating the machines. I'm glad to be of help and ease the load of my coworkers. At the very least, I'm not a burden to them. But the joy is short-lived. Our hard work is used against us. The machines are recalibrated to move even faster. There are 2 conveyor belts in my section of the warehouse. When one of the 2 lines queues up with too many boxes, everyone kicks into high gear to help. Boxes swell and slam into one another, piling up and knocking onto the ground. Someone will get fired for this. The boss can't allow for damaged fruit. One after another, boxes pile up while we struggle to rectify the collision. Men from other lines dart over to assist us while also attending their own line. Young and old men race back and forth between the lines, working with all their might to beat the indomitable machine. Sometimes this chaos brings a smile to someone, who then yells a sort of war cry, known to Mexicans as an aipa, a sort of, "Bring it on, I'm strong enough." It lightens the mood. It inspires me to do the same and work in harmony with my coworkers. But the smile soon leaves my face when we lose out against the Apple apparatus. This thing, this life, cannot be beat. If the line proves too overwhelming, a supervisor pushes the emergency button, stopping the conveyor belt. He waits until all the boxes are cleared. We, the defeated men, are reminded again that we are only men. Nothing more. Less, even, in the face of all this metal. White and Latino supervisors scold us for the delay, and before long the buzzer sounds again, giving us little time to recover. Several times a day, for long hours, This is the routine. It's difficult to think clearly. The common response to the question of what time shift ends is, when the trucks stop coming.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?